Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was created in the True Off My Chest subreddit by a user named FreeRiver3388. The post is titled, "I had a baby as a result of an affair, and now his wife is reaching out to me. I, F26, had an affair with a married man, M42, a few years ago. I had no clue he was married when we first met and hooked up. I obviously looked him up on social media, and while he did have photos of his kids on there, there was absolutely no mention or photos of a wife at all. I found out that he was married about a month after we first got together, but he told me it was just a marriage on paper and that they basically lived separate lives and agreed to remain married for practical purposes until the kids were older. They owned a business which she really ran and he was just financially involved in. I knew at the time that I probably shouldn't believe him, but I convinced myself it was true. I was in my early 20s and so attracted to him and I guess almost infatuated with him. He made me feel so good. I know now that I should have ended it immediately, but I didn't realize what I was getting myself into. I was addicted to all of the attention he gave me, the great the places he'd take me. I felt special. I was so naive. I got pregnant about a year into seeing him. I had always been so careful with preventing pregnancy, but during my relationship with him, I took stupid risks. I was so high in lust with this guy, it's embarrassing. The things he'd ask me to do. I'd say yes to almost anything, even when I knew it was a bad idea. I was in love with him, or I thought I was. I hadn't intentionally wanted to get pregnant. I would of course dream about being his wife and having a family, but I knew that wouldn't be a possibility while he had this arrangement with his actual wife. I didn't get pregnant on purpose with any intention of him leaving her for me, even if I wished that we could be a real, normal couple. I was surprised by how excited I was to be pregnant with his baby. I wanted that baby once I found out I was pregnant. The thought of carrying this baby of the man I loved was so special to me, but I knew he probably wouldn't feel the same. I told him I was pregnant and he told me I couldn't keep the baby. I expected his reaction, but I was devastated and it hurt me to my core that he didn't feel the same way I did. He offered to pay, to make a whole weekend of it somewhere exciting, and to buy me something special if I'd just please get rid of the baby. He explained that he didn't want any more kids and that he couldn't openly be a father to another kid when he and his wife were still pretending to be happily married to the outside world. I agreed to do what he wanted and we made plans for him to pick me up and find somewhere out of town to go get it done. I was all packed the night he was going to pick me up, but I started to feel really scared and really unsafe about the whole thing. I took my bag and checked myself into a hotel to hide because I couldn't go with him. I texted him to say I promised to never contact him again and to never name him as the father or go after child support if he'd promised to leave me alone. At first, he tried to sweet talk me into doing what he wanted. When I didn't cave in, he said some very nasty things to me and that I essentially better never contact him again or show up at his door. I have a 2-year-old now. At times it's been difficult, but overall we are thriving as best we can. I have kept my word about not naming him as the father or requesting child support. His wife contacted me on social media. Well, she's his ex-wife now. She wants to talk to me. She found out about me and told me that she divorced him 6 months ago. She wants her children to know their sibling and for my child to know his siblings. That's weird to me. I haven't responded back to her yet. I am unsure about how to approach this. How do I respond to this? I wonder if I'm being selfish by not exploring an option for my child to know his siblings, if she's being genuine about that. If I was married and my husband fathered a child outside of our marriage, I don't think I'd feel the same that she does. Based solely off this one post, I don't really have much of an opinion, besides the fact that the man OP had a kid with is a piece of trash. I'm giving OP the benefit of the doubt that she truly didn't know this man was married. I personally don't see the harm in potentially allowing her kid to meet the man's children. As we will soon see, a lot of people are urging OP to meet his ex-wife and potentially go after child support. This is another thing that I don't really have an opinion on. If she wants to, then go ahead, I guess. User Bambina821 said, "I'd keep that door open but not walk through it. You have good instincts and your uneasiness is probably well-founded. Maybe she really is a saint who's over whatever resentment she may have felt toward you. Or maybe the marriage really was a shell and she doesn't care about him enough to see you as a past threat. Or maybe she does resent you and is using your little son as a means to get into your life and make you suffer. I'd tell her you're not opposed to the idea, but that you don't want to rush into anything. Also, let her know that you eventually saw him as he really was and you don't want to ever be in the same room with him. Suggest exchanging emails or texts first and then maybe progress to phone calls. If that goes well for a while, then maybe meet just her and do it in a public place. User Eyeball Beasting said, so many people are telling you to go for it for the sake of the child and possible child support, but I would say that you have good instincts that have served you well. Don't ignore them now. You are leading a happy life with your child. You have survived so far without his financial help. Letting her and the children into your lives will be inviting him back into your life too. You also don't know what her intentions are or if it is even her who is contacting you. No matter what, it will be inviting him back into your life in some way. He made you feel unsafe and wanted you to get rid of your child. He also abandoned you and your child. He cheated on his wife and kids for a long time. He is not a good guy. I would say keep him out of your life. Continue as you are. User Ambitious Audiences 2 said, honestly, this is suspect. It sounds too good to be true, and it probably is. Those encouraging you to meet aren't thinking about the situation fully. You have no way to verify that this person is who they say they are. It could be your ex or someone else connected to the situation. Keep yourself and your child safe. Your ex seemed a little unhinged towards the end. If you really want to pursue this, investigate the guy and family. Bring at least 2 people to meet this individual in a very public space if you choose to bypass an investigation. Also, don't bring your kid. For all you know, the father might want access to a kid without you in the picture. Plus, you don't know this woman. There are some women who would go to amazing lengths to keep useless men. Whatever you do, OP, be careful. User Linny Pixie said, since she knows and is divorced now, I would summon him for child support. Ask for a DNA test. The money is for your child. Your child deserves it. User Shelly895 said, lady, with all due respect, the ex-wife is giving you a lot of grace here. You literally slept with her husband for over a year and even had a child with him while they were still married. And yet, instead of cursing you out or slandering your name, which a lot of people would do, she's choosing to be the bigger person and thinking about what's best for her and your kids. She wants to give your child the opportunity to have a relationship with his biological siblings, and you don't want to do it because what? You're scared you're going to hear some harsh words. How about you do what she's trying to do and put your kid first? I don't have to tell you how selfish it was to have an affair with a married man, so please don't extend this selfishness to your child and deprive him of having more family and people who love him. A few weeks later, OP provided an update. I made a post 3 weeks ago and things have only gotten stranger. I had an affair with a married man a few years ago. I regret it and I will never do anything like that ever again. I knew it was wrong from the very beginning, but he captivated me. I was naive. I allowed myself to believe him when he told me they were pretty much just married on paper for the sake of their kids. I got pregnant and while he tried to talk me into getting an abortion, I ultimately decided to keep the baby. I have a 2-year-old little boy now. I promised this man that I wouldn't expose our affair and I wouldn't formally identify him as the father or request child support. I did that because he was becoming very nasty about the whole thing and I felt like due to the mess that I had created and the way I felt by the end of it, a clean break with no involvement with him would be the best thing for everyone. I moved back to where my family is, hundreds of miles from where he and his family live. About a month ago, his ex-wife reached out to me via social media claiming they had been divorced for 6 months and that she wanted our children to be able to know each other. Now, their kids are teenagers, so I didn't really think they'd want anything to do with the toddler and the woman their father was having an affair with. It seemed odd to me. After posting here, I sort of decided that I wouldn't respond to her. I'd just ignore it. She just sent me the one message, so it wasn't as if she was badgering me about talking to me or meeting me. On Friday night, I decided to message her. I don't really know why. I think it was really just for my sake, so I could have the chance to apologize to her. I told her that I would be more comfortable speaking with her face to face since I couldn't trust that it was really her. She said she understood. I was too nervous to meet her in person, but we did a video chat. I didn't know what to expect, if this was all a ploy just to unleash her fury on me or what. I mean, I deserve that. She wouldn't be wrong to feel that way. It was really her. She told me she discovered our affair when she found communications between the two of us after our relationship had ended. She told me I'm one of many women he had affairs with over the years, and she knew about somebody even before he met me, but she didn't divorce him at the time. Finding out about my child was the final straw for her. I told her I was sorry for my relationship with her husband and admitted that I knew he was married. She graciously told me she forgives me and that while she harbored a lot of anger towards me initially, she ultimately blames her husband. I'm not blameless, but she chooses not to hate me, essentially. She said she couldn't have said this 6 months ago or a year ago when she first found out about me, but she has moved past that. She still has anger toward him in addition to many other emotions surrounding him. She started pouring out her heart to me about their 20+ year marriage and life together, and it was very awkward because what do I even say? Her kids know about me and my son. She says they're very mad at their father. Somehow, I don't think they're mad about the fact that he's not involved with my son's life. And why would they be mad about that? I would hate me if I were them. I told her with my son being so little right now, I don't really feel comfortable with him meeting her kids or being involved with their family. I feel unsure about it and it's just not something I feel needs to happen right now. Then she told me her ex-husband was in a bad accident 2 months ago. He's fine now, still not allowed to return to all his normal activities just yet, but will be fine. He is probably the most physically active person I've ever met, barely ever seems to sit down. So he must be terribly annoying to be around if he's not allowed to go all the time. She told me he wants to meet my son. Apparently, she moved back in with him temporarily when he first came home from the hospital. She said the accident really shook him up and he has been expressing a lot of regret about my son not being involved, not providing for him. So now it's like, was everything she said just a lie and he somehow got her to reach out to me on his behalf and she actually did it? It felt almost like a relief talking to her initially, but then it's like, was any of that true or were you just trying to be his messenger? I don't even know if that part is true now. Why wouldn't he just contact me himself? I'm just feeling so uneasy about the whole thing now. User Codeman2542 said, I'm going to be straight with you. The man is likely high in narcissistic traits and the woman is not going to leave him. She will likely end up with him again. I wouldn't trust anything either of them say as genuine. Think about your son in all this because if he is emotionally or physically hurt, it could linger the rest of his life. He would be better off thinking his dad just isn't around. A deleted user said, you have every right to be suspicious of their motives. I think you should end the conversation/interaction with them at this point. I think it was good you got to meet his wife and hear her side of things, but I don't think it's a good idea to do anything else. You can certainly acknowledge it to them and thank them for the offer to meet or whatever, but you both need to move on. He sounds like a real piece of garbage, by the way, and I wouldn't put it past him that this is just another manipulation. Who knows if he even was in an accident. Please spare me the sob story. Just end it here and focus on raising a good son who won't do this kind of thing to someone else. User Jamiroquai said, what a manipulative man. I can't imagine being this woman. He had a free pass to clean his hands of you, but that wasn't what he wanted, and he made it his doormat wife's business to lure you back into his orbit, so ultimately he can try to win you over again because for whatever reason, she lets him cheat in peace. I'm sure neither of them would like you if you demanded the child support you're entitled to. I'd address that legal entitlement if she reaches out again. After that, they'll probably leave you alone. User Substantial Youth 9106 said, well, if this man has access to resources and money and he comes for custody, what will you do? Even if that means he can afford the child support and back amount. I wish you had never responded and that you had taken off. Did he give you some document signing all parental rights away? What if you get slapped with a paternity suit? Now, there is a paper trail of communication with you and the ex-wife. Everyone wants to meet your son. You need to figure things out soon and quickly. You brought this child into the world and should have thought harder. Under this comment, OP said, I don't know what I'll do. I didn't think it was ever something I'd have to worry about. He has money and connections. No, he did not sign any documents. He isn't named on the birth certificate either. Legally, he hasn't been named as the father in any way, but he could obviously petition a court if he wanted to. Once again, I feel like I've just screwed everything up. User Darjeeling Lady said, you did say in your post that you feel that you were very naive. I feel that you still haven't shed a huge chunk of your naivete off yourself. Run, girl. He's a master manipulator. How do you know that the ex-wife is truly an ex? Did you see any divorce certificate or something to that effect? A masterclass manipulator will be able to manipulate a woman into doing anything that he demands. No, no, no. Cut all contacts, don't meet them. You owe your baby boy a drama-free childhood, free of toxic people. User JStrat said, I'd block and go. It sounds like you kept important information private, so just block everywhere all at once. Send one message that says you are not at all comfortable with the contact you have had and that you wish her well, but any further contact from her or from her ex will be considered harassment. That will give you room to report anything further to the police, and it will hopefully make it so that no reports to the police are necessary and they leave you and your son alone. I wish you well. So after this post, I am definitely feeling a bit uneasy. I agree with most of the comments here and advise OP to tread carefully from here on out. She should cut off all contact with this family and try to distance herself as much as possible. In the next update, OP said the following. I posted about this a few months ago. To summarize very quickly, when I was fresh out of college, I had an affair with a married man and father. I became pregnant. He wanted me to get an abortion. He had arranged to take me away on a vacation to get an abortion. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I agreed to go along with what he wanted. At the last minute, when he was on his way to come pick me up, I told him I couldn't go through with the abortion. I just really didn't feel comfortable about his plan and how he was orchestrating everything. It scared me. I realized at that time how deep I had gone with this mistake, how screwed up the whole relationship was. He was really mad. He threatened me, said a lot of nasty things to me. I told him if he just left me alone and let me have my baby, then I'd leave him alone and wouldn't name him as the father or seek child support. I moved back home. I was living in a different state when I met him. I kept my word and didn't name him as the father or seek to establish paternity. I have never sought child support. My child is 2 now. A few months ago, his wife contacted me via social media. At first, she made it seem like she wanted my child to have the opportunity to know his siblings. It was sort of weird since the siblings are teenagers. She said she had divorced him 6 months prior. I agreed to talk to her virtually, not in person. I felt that I owed it to her to apologize for what I had done. I do feel bad about it. But at the end of the conversation, I told her that I didn't feel it was the appropriate time to connect my son with her kids. He's a toddler and they're teens. Plus, I had promised her husband to stay out of his life. That's when she told me that he was recently in a bad accident and she had been helping to take care of him. Supposedly, he was going to be fine and was fairly recovered at that point, but she said he had expressed interest in meeting our child. So she was basically his messenger. I have not been in contact with her since then. I deleted my social media, I don't know why, but the whole thing just really made me uncomfortable since I last posted here. Then I received a handwritten letter from him. In it, he expressed how he wanted to get to know our son. He wants to be a father to our son. He wants to provide financially for him. He'd like us to come visit him. He asked me to sign a paternity affidavit. I refused to do so. I know he is my son's father, but I'm not going to make this that easy for him. After the things he said to me and threatened me with, he at least has to work for this. At that point, my parents felt that we needed to meet with a lawyer. All communication from me has gone through a lawyer. I have never responded to him personally or directly. Now, I have a court order for paternity. I have to present my son to have a specimen taken tomorrow. I already know what it's going to say. It's not that I don't want my son to have a dad in his life. It's just the whole situation is a mess, and he lives a few states away from me. I don't know what to do. I can't really do anything. He's doing things legally. Next, I'm sure he'll petition for some form of custody or visitation. He's not married anymore, supposedly, but he's a lot more established than I am. He has considerably more financial resources. I also know he has all sorts of connections where he lives. Luckily, they don't hold as much weight here in my state, but it's still so scary to me. I'm a bad mom. I brought my son into this world knowing it was a messy situation. I just got so comfortable with it just being the two of us, and now I don't want to give that up. Over a month later, we got another update from OP. I won't rehash the whole thing here. My previous posts are on my profile. I got pregnant from an affair with a married guy. He wanted me to have an abortion. I decided I didn't want one. He turned mean. I promised to not name him as the father legally or to pursue any sort of child support. I moved away from where he and his family were located. I'm about 12 hours away from him now, back where my family is from. I haven't reached out to him in the now over 3 years since. His ex-wife reached out to me out of the blue via social media, initially claiming she wanted to connect with me so that our kids could know each other. When I politely declined for the time being, as her kids are teenagers and my son is a toddler and we live states apart, she revealed she was really reaching out on behalf of her ex-husband, who had supposedly had a change of heart about being involved in our child's life after nearly dying in an accident. I did not engage with her any further after that. It all made me feel very uncomfortable. Later, I received a letter from him in the mail. He asked to be involved with our son, to provide for him, etc. It still felt weird. I mean, he turned really mean and didn't want anything to do with me or our baby and hadn't made any attempt to contact me in years. And I was not hiding. His wife was obviously able to find me on social media, and you can find my address online. I felt like if he was serious, he'd take the steps to establish paternity legally, and that's what he did. Around 1.5 months ago, we were ordered to submit DNA samples for a paternity test. It took around 5 weeks to find out what I already knew it'd say, but now things are stalled for another several weeks for the next step in the court process. I haven't talked to him at all during this whole thing. I didn't respond directly to his letter. I do have a lawyer, and everything is basically going through him now. Then, without any warning, he just showed up at my home last weekend. Just knocked on the door like it was nothing. Basically, this is his son, and he doesn't want to wait another 6 weeks for the court to inevitably order us into some sort of custody mediation anyway. His words, "Why can't I just talk to him? I told him he made me uncomfortable, and him just showing up at my house really made me uncomfortable. Honestly, I don't know what made me so uncomfortable. The fact that he showed up unannounced like that, or the fact that I instantly felt the same attraction to him that I had when I was with him, and I didn't want to feel that at all. In some weird way, part of me felt happy to see him, and then another part of me was disgusted that I was happy. He said he doesn't understand why we can't just talk about this. He's not trying to take my son away from me. He just wants to be involved in his life and to help provide for him like he should have been all along. He's sorry he wasn't there when he was born. He's sorry he reacted the way that he did when I didn't go along with his plans to take me on an abortion vacation. Why can't I believe that he just wants to be a dad to his kid? I guess I agree with him. Why can't I just accept that he has had a change of heart? I can't trust myself. I can't trust my own judgment. I feel like if I easily let him into my son's life, I'm going to end up regretting it and be made a fool of somehow. I've already made so many mistakes when it comes to him. He says it's stupid of me to not try to work it out amongst ourselves first. I'm giving so much control to the court. I don't know whether to believe that or to think it's just his way of convincing me to do what he wants. I know he will get some sort of visitation and eventual custody. Maybe it would be better if we try to come to an agreement, but he had the ability to sway me so easily. I'm so stupid when it comes to him. Nobody else has ever made me feel so foolish in my life. I want my son to have a dad. I admit it's probably selfish of me to want to keep him away. I just keep imagining having to spend weeks or months apart from my child while he's living with his dad 12 hours away. And I can't stand the thought of it. I'm just feeling sad, stupid, and defeated. User MammothMite8171 said, "At this point you need to trust your lawyer. Hopefully he is a good one. Make sure that your lawyer has all the facts, including how poorly he treated you when he found out you were pregnant. Do not communicate anymore with your ex, especially since you know that you are incapable of making good decisions when he is involved. You may need to prepare yourself mentally that your ex is eventually going to play a role in your kid's life, as much as that sucks. Hopefully you can go after him for back child support." User Virtual Choir Boy said, and the next post in 6 months. "My child's father, who abandoned me when the child was born, has now petitioned for full custody because he has a wife and I don't have a husband. Be afraid. Be very afraid. I get that you want the Hollywood movie ideal, but sometimes that push for the ideal will make you ignore the sea of red flags. If nothing else, document all of this. If you have any receipts from the affair, add those to the documents too. If I had to guess, the wife is experiencing a bit of empty nest adjacent emotions but doesn't want to go through childbirth on her own, so she is pressuring you to try to get yet another stab at early motherhood." User Heart-Shaped C said, "So I was in your exact same position 13 years ago. The guy I got pregnant by turned out to be married, threatened me over not having an abortion. In my case, I got him legally on abandonment and my husband adopted him. If he had come back before then, I would have made him take every step required by law. It's been 3 years. He doesn't just get to show up one day and expect you to believe that he's a different person now. He still has to prove himself, even if he doesn't want to wait. He ditched the kid for 3 years. He can wait another 6 months. Allow the court to decide on visitation and then follow the schedule to the letter. They'll probably start out with a few hours of supervised visitation and go to unsupervised visitation up to eventual overnights. Typically, in a situation like this, you start out with a few hours per week for 4 to 6 weeks, increase time for another 4 to 6 weeks, etc. I can tell you right now, it's not going to go as fast as he wants it to, but that's not your problem. The time he's missing is his own fault. He could have already been there. He sounds kind of unstable too, to be honest. You don't know anything about him anymore, but you know what he's capable of, so keep your head in the game. Tell him not to come to your house again until invited and that you will happily comply with whatever the courts think is best. If he asks why, tell him an apology isn't a time machine. If it were up to him, your baby wouldn't even be here. User Aggravating Secret 7 said, "Oh honey, you're in a mess. Do not give an inch to this man until the court orders you to do so. Then do only what the court says to do when the court says to do it and how the court says to do it. You can't trust yourself right now. Despite everything he has done and said in the past, you still have some sort of attraction and feelings for him. The only person you can trust right now is your attorney. Let him do his job. Your son needs a father figure. That doesn't mean it has to be his biological father, and that doesn't mean that his biological father gets a free pass on all that went down in the past. And where is your family? I didn't read all your posts, but you need to have a good support system to get you through this. You especially need someone to talk you off the ledge where this man is concerned." In the next update, OP said, "Since the last time I posted, we've recently had a mediation session and he's met our son twice. At this time, he will have supervised visitation with me present. Because he lives states away, he is required to come here to see our son. It will not be on a weekly basis due to the travel. He will see him during 2 weeks of the month, 2 times each week, for a total of 4 visits a month plus 2 video calls a month. This will last for 6 months. The next step will be for him to continue that schedule, but to have unsupervised visitation, during which he cannot remove him from the area for another 6 months. After a year, we agree to have another mediation session to determine the next steps, with the goal, his goal, of being able to have my son at his home for short overnights. I'm not even ready to discuss that. He's already suggesting I can come for the first few times. I don't like the sound of it at all. We also have the option to request another mediation before 1 year, and something tells me he's going to pull that. I also have an order for child support. While he is in agreement with paying child support, it will have to work through the court system before becoming official, and for me to start getting the regular payment. He wrote me a large check in the meantime. I was hesitant to accept it. Not that I don't think my son deserves it, but now I'm just always worried I'll say or do the wrong thing legally, completely unknowingly, and shoot myself in the foot. Like, am I obligating myself and my son to anything by accepting this check? Can he somehow spin this against me? Of course, he was not in favor of the 6-month split plan, and while he does understand that my son should not just go off with a stranger upon first meeting him, he wishes we could speed it along a little more, but 6 months was what we were able to agree on. He wanted to fly us both to where he lived so he could spend a week or 2 getting to know our son, but I don't feel that's appropriate at this time. Perhaps in a few months or around the holidays, depending on how things are going. It would be too much too soon. The initial 2 meetings went pretty much just as I thought they would. My son is extremely shy. He wanted to hide behind me most of the time. Then, when he would venture out from behind me, as soon as his dad would say anything to him, he would scurry back behind me and just stare at his dad blankly without saying anything. He came out of his shell a little bit. However, he has still not said a single word to his dad. He just pretends like his dad isn't there and only talks to me. I will say that his dad is being patient and understanding as far as that goes. If he's frustrated, he's not showing it. He did suggest that maybe our son needs to get out more, go to daycare more, or even preschool, instead of spending so much time with me and my parents. He's very delighted with how much our son looks like him and how much he favors him over me. The one thing that did bother me is that I already told him I wanted to be very careful and mindful of how we informed our son, this little barely 3-year-old boy, that this man/complete stranger is his dad. He said, "Sure, yeah." Then at the first meeting, he introduced himself as Dad. Since then, I've been trying to help my son understand. Like, you know how your grandpa is my daddy? This guy is your daddy. It's so surreal to me that any of this is happening. I feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm waiting for something to blow up in my face. Now, it's just working on accepting our new reality. All of this change is hard and confusing for my son, and it's hard for me. Unless he really messes up, I'm looking at eventually shared times with my son spending school breaks and holidays at his dad's house, hours and hours away in another state. It won't happen tomorrow, but it will happen in the most likely reality. I just hope he stays committed. If he can be a good dad to my child, then my child deserves that, no matter how sad sharing him makes me. If he breaks my son's heart, that'll be another story, and I won't accept that so readily. User Purple Bishop 2 said, "What did your lawyer say about accepting money from your son's father before child support is finalized? I find it hard to believe that a court would order your 3-year-old to go to another state to visit a man who your son doesn't know and who refused to have anything to do with your son for 3 years. Your AP sounds like he has enough money to come to your state for the visits, so it's not like cost is an issue. The man can take vacation and rent a place near you, or he can buy a second or third home near you. If you don't want your son to go on out-of-state visits, get a better lawyer." User Passage Significant 28 said, "He's going to trickle his way to becoming more in control. He's going to start super sweet and complimentary, and then it will turn to slight admonishments and with my older kids, I did things this way, etc. Then it's going to turn to, I know better than you do, listen to me. And it's going to be super reasonable at first, but then it will be about control again. As much as it might suck, having a good co-parenting relationship is essential, but start as you mean to go on. He might have money, but right now you have the power. He took years to want to be in the child's life, not to mention his behavior before. I would be civil and impersonal with him. Use those state CPS apps to communicate about your kid. Stay away from personal communication and reminiscing about the past. Keep it courteous, but not how you would behave with a friend. You have to be vigilant and remember who he really is. He is more than the man who seduced you into an affair and acted lovingly. He's the man that wanted to force an abortion. He's the man who cheated on his wife, the mother of his children. He's the one that stalked and harassed you. It's not about forgive and forget. He doesn't appear to be a changed man either. He's opportunistic and you need to be careful." The most recent update was made about 2 weeks from the time of this recording. It's been 3 weeks since I last posted and just over a month since our new visitation arrangement started. I've seen plenty of people here talking about how dumb I am. I don't really understand. What am I doing that's so dumb? I know it was dumb to have an ongoing year-long affair with a married man. It was stupid to put myself in a position where I could likely end up pregnant. That was in the past. What am I doing now that's so stupid? I have a lawyer. Yes, I agreed to talk to his wife one time. How was I to know she was just doing his bidding? Who would have thought that was the case? It's not even like I went to meet her in person somewhere. It was just a video call. I figured I at least owed that to her, just one time and a chance to tell her I was sorry for what I did. But ultimately, it felt off and I protected my son by telling her I didn't think it was appropriate at this time for me and my 2-year-old to travel to another state to meet her teenage kids. It's not as if talking to her opened the door for him to reach out to me. I was careful with what info I shared with her. It's not as if I told her my address. He didn't need her to gather that info from me. Me talking to her isn't what prompted him to contact me directly and establish paternity. When he reached out to me directly about wanting to be involved with our son, I didn't reach out to him and decide to discuss things directly with him. I got a lawyer. When he showed up at my house, I didn't let him inside. I put my son in his room so he didn't eventually see our son or have access to him. I'm listening to my lawyer. I met with him in a mediation and I am trying to make careful decisions for my son. There is nothing I can do to prevent him from having access to our son. The court will grant him access if I fight it. At least this way, I have a say in the arrangement. We are supposed to be using a parenting app. Since the last time I posted, he's reached out to me outside of the app. Now he keeps talking about us coming there to visit him. I have told him no, it's not appropriate. It's too much too soon. He's also already started talking about changing my son's last name to his, but maybe in a year or so. He tries to have personal conversations with me, not always about our son. I have shut those down and referred him back to the parenting app. He thinks using the app is stupid and is only for people who can't get along. He thinks it'd be better for our son if we got along and got to know each other again. He cares about me and what's going on in my life, or so he says. I also didn't cash the check he gave me. I returned it. If he wants to help financially beyond the child support he's ordered to pay, he can purchase items that our son needs out of his own free will, but he isn't to give me cash or checks. My lawyer actually told me that there was nothing wrong with accepting and cashing the check. It wouldn't affect anything related to child support, but knowing him, he could be using this check as something he can bring up later in court, and I just didn't feel comfortable about it. Sure, I would have loved to have kept it. There are quite a few useful things I could have used that money for. Of course, he was upset when I returned the check via certified mail. His plan was foiled. I know he's trying to butter me up for something. I don't know precisely what, but I'm not that stupid that I don't see through him now. User Noelsley said, I am extremely concerned for you. I've commented elsewhere, but you're in a very serious situation, and while I think you recognize that to some degree, your actions aren't consistently reflecting it. I don't want to come off as nagging or aggressive, but do not communicate with this man outside of the app. He is trying to get you to slip up somehow. You know he wants full custody of your son, and he's currently petitioning to get his name on your son's birth certificate. Don't give him the opportunity to catch you off guard. You've already mentioned that he crossed a boundary by telling your son he's his dad after you clearly stated he needed to establish a relationship first. You're allowing him to continue crossing boundaries, and if you don't stop it now, he's going to keep pushing until he makes your life a nightmare, unless you give in to him. User Faded Lance said, do not respond anymore outside the app, and every time that he tries to communicate outside of it, send that proof to your lawyer. This can be used in court against him because he's breaking court order. If you tell him to stop conversing about anything that isn't about your child and he doesn't listen and keeps trying, send that to your lawyer too. All this can be used to show he is not genuine and will help you. If you can do this, it can really help you potentially limit him in the future and make things harder for him. He sounds like someone who believes he can do whatever he wants, and you are kind of confirming that for him right now by responding. Shut him down. Good luck, OP. You can do this. User OldMeal2640 said, do not even give him an inch of the benefit of doubt. Send all of his correspondence to your lawyer. If he messages you personally, copy and paste the message in quotations or screenshot it to the app so it can be documented there, and only answer him on there. Don't trust him at all. From the name change comment, it seems like he is going to try for full custody or alienation in some way. User Eli Siav Knox said, listen, unlike many people here who are probably giving you a lot of grief for having a kid with a married man, I'll say this. This isn't why you're currently being called dumb. It's because you underestimate the severity of having your kid taken from you by allowing him to talk to you outside of the agreed format. He's going to get you to say something stupid and then use that to paint you as an unfit mother. The fact that you're not grasping this is why they're calling you dumb.